All right. Today, we're sitting down with Bryan Smith, BJ, as some people call him, and we're going to talk about fitness. So, Bryan is many things, but I think of the most impressive in my mind, you have the best fitness to kid ratio.
That is a enormous compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, you have 4 kids, 5 on the way.
Yeah. That's why I keep having kids, to keep that ratio.
Because if you just stay where you're at and have 5 more kids, you're going to be off the charts.
That's right.
Yeah, so you got 5 kids and they're young kids, and fitness is a big part of your life, to say the least, right?
Right.
And it's noticeable. I mean, you're always going to the gym. You're always, when we're out at lunch, you're always eating right. And it's interesting, and I'm so curious to understand why you are the way that you are. Right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think you might need a disclaimer that I have no certificates. I'm not a personal trainer. Please do not, this is not legal advice.
This is why I wanted to talk to you, because I didn't want to talk to one of those guys.
Yeah. I'm not like a professional fitness person, but I enjoy it and sort of a hobbyist. So,
Well, that's good. That's good. So I think the first thing is maybe at a high level, talk about your fitness journey. You know, where you were 10 years ago, where you were 15 years ago, where you are now, where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years. Let's just start there.
so just start with the life story and where I want to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I think I grew up like my dad was a coach. I grew up playing sports and very active. I grew up like a skinny kid too, like super, like I could eat whatever I want. I literally couldn't put on weight, and until I like hit puberty and at 20, right, or whatever. Like I
hit puberty at 20?
Well, maybe that's an announcement. Yeah. No, I did not. But I didn't. I was very little. I was very wiry all through school. So it didn't matter what I ate. I didn't develop any sort of habits. I didn't wrestle, so I didn't care what I ate. Like it didn't matter. I was just putting as much food in my body as I could.
Like junk food too.
Oh yeah,
chips.
Yeah. I mean, I would
Candy.
eat what my mom made, so I would have decent nutritional stuff. But it was on my own, especially right out of like getting out on my own after leaving the house, and like I left the house and went and played college football at Snow College for 2 seasons, one before my mission in Alaska and then one after. And that was sort of my senior year was sort of my kind of like fitness awakening. Up until then, it was like I had a class that was a weightlifting class. I, did what my coaches told me to do. I didn't have an understanding of it. I just, whatever's written on the board, what I would do. But food and weightlifting and things didn't become a big part of my life until about my senior year in high school.
Okay, so you were what, 17?
Yeah, 18.
18.
So it was the end of it was actually after, so I didn't do spring sports. So it was the end of my senior year after I had been done basically doing competitive sports. So basketball and football. Once those things were done, I was like, okay, now what do I do? So I found myself getting up early and going with a buddy to the gym, and we were like just figuring out. We used to wear like fingerless gloves.
Do you wear fingerless gloves today?
I do not. I kind of wish I did, though. Some calluses you get, but
you got to be really big to wear fingerless gloves.
Yeah. It's turning into a long story, but that's where I sort of started figuring it out. Like we would eat like we learned what carbo loading was and thought that was like going to help us put on muscle. So we'd walk around our senior year with like a sleeve of crackers and a jug of water, and we were like,
yeah,
we're gonna get big.
Yeah.
And I was literally my senior year, I was 135 pounds, like soaking wet.
Whoa.
So the roster, like my senior year in football, like the height, they included cleats, and the weight, they included the pads, right? So it was like, and that was 135. So I was generous. I mean, just super skinny, super little, but that's when I started putting on weight. And then I put on probably 10 pounds before the next fall, which is I was a walk-on at Snow. I was more quick than fast and wasn't big, but I was a corner. And so that was great. And then I served a 2-year mission, which essentially took off weightlifting. I mean, I push-ups and sit-ups and tried to run a little. But what I found was I grew up a lot during that year. I matured a lot, or those 2 years.
You think physically?
Yeah, physically, and I put on 20 pounds over those 2 years. I think, and I wasn't like terrible weight, but I put on 20 pounds. I came back and was actually stronger than when I left. So, and that's when I started caring about how much I benched and like how to lift. I didn't do like a power lift until college. Like my high school was, I mean, we did squats and stuff, but not like deadlifts or cleans or anything like that. So that was a big deal. Played football, lifted a lot. Was in really, really decent shape at that point. And then I got married, and I was kind of like on again, off again for the gym for, I mean, maybe once a week for 4 years, and then nothing when we had our first baby, right? And it was like another 3 years probably before I decided, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting, what ended up happening is I got my body composition was changing, but my weight wasn't really changing. So it was like this, like lulling me into this false sense of like, I'm still sort of okay, because I was staying about the same weight and just getting soft. So I like muscle was going away. So I was losing some good weight, right? But I was putting on like bad weight at about the same rate. So it took me about 7 years to realize like like I'm fully like I need to start back up. And so for about 5 years now, I've been going to the gym regularly and back and like really caring about what I eat and going to the gym.
So what does that mean regularly for you?
I would say 5-6 days a week. So typically 6 days a week. I mean,
6 days. Wow. Even on Saturday, you're going.
Saturday's my favorite day to go.
Wow.
Yep. There's almost nobody in the gym, which is nice, and there's no like stress or time constraints typically. So I'll try to get there around the same time as I do on a work day, but then I just like lay around and do.
Which is early.
Yeah, well, I guess that's not true. I'll go early for Saturday, but not as early as I go now. During a work day.
So I'm curious about this change, right? You hit this point, and what was the motivation to like spark this 5-year sprint almost of constantly working out?
It was kind of weird. I mean, I think there was a specific moment I remember, but even at that point, I didn't have it figured out. So it was still kind of gradual into what I'm doing now. But the spark that really made me realize that I need to change something was we had some family pictures, and I was wearing this like very kind of, it was supposed to be like a tighter fitting Henley shirt that was long sleeve, but like it would look good on you if you had muscles. And like I looked at the family pictures we took in it, and it was like super tight around my waist and super loose across my shoulders.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, maybe in the edit I'll throw the photo up and see how embarrassed I was. But I looked at it, I was honestly like, oh my gosh, like I look bad. Like and it was like the first time I was like, oh my gosh, I don't look good. And so anyway, that kind of spurred me like, okay, I need to do something. I need to get back in the gym and work out. And then, I started running and realized I hate running. I remembered that I hate running. And then that's kind of what got me into weightlifting, is that's the thing that I had lifted weights, for sports and stuff. And then, like I said, as my senior year, I kind of developed a love for it. But I hadn't done it in years and years. And so getting back in the gym and lifting weights was like, okay, this is a fitness this is exercise that I enjoy.
Okay.
And like, that's why I mean, some people love to run. Some people love, classes and like, hit high intensity interval training, but I'm more of a fan of just like lifting weights.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that there were some negative aspect of your health that pushed you in a direction, and then you found some positive aspect to pull you.
Yeah.
So there's interesting research to suggest if you're trying to get a mouse to go through a maze as fast as you can put a mouse, you can put cheese. I don't know if it's cheese, but let's just say, and it will go through the maze. But if you put a mouse with cheese and then you put the odor of a cat behind it, it runs away from something and towards something. And so I think it's interesting that like in your journey, you had something you were running away from and something you were running towards because you loved it.
Yeah. I think was a really good description of it.
You're a mouse is what I'm saying.
Yeah. The cat is ugly.
It's
Scubby is what it's called. Skinny chubby.
scubby.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have a lot of questions about the transformation. One for my own understanding, and I'm sure other people are curious. So, like you said, the first thing you did was running. I feel like that's the most intuitive thing. Of like, I run, I sweat, I burn calories, and I look good, right? You didn't like it, so do you run it all now?
Yep. Yeah, I do. And maybe I was being a little tongue in cheek by saying I don't like it. I should clarify. The first thing I did was buy an outfit and shoes like that. I think that is the most like my brother and anyone who I've tried to help kind of spark their fitness journey.
Okay.
Dude, if you don't have a desire to like work out, buy workout clothes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And like I think that for me, maybe it's because I'm like I don't know, I like to buy clothes, but
sure.
like that was a big deal. Like okay, I feel good. Like I feel like I belong.
Yeah.
In exercising, like because I got the right shoes, I got the right clothes, and I'm not saying that's important for everybody, but for me it was like okay, this mental shift that I got, like okay, I that's not a, there's no friction there,
Yeah.
where it's like I don't know what I'm gonna wear, like people are gonna make fun of me, like I have these
Sure.
crappy like sweats and like so anyway, I got shoes which were good for running and I went on a run and I got like the Nike Run app and I at first like that was what I did, like I went outside and just would run and realized that like that's not the only thing I want to do, because it wasn't I think what's kind of critical when you start like in a fitness journey or like you have a spark that starts you back up is there's totally different definitions of what you want to do. Like I was not obese. I was not overweight, right? Like I didn't need to just like drop weight. I needed to change how I looked and felt about myself. And so running wasn't probably the best way to like put weight back on my shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And off
Yeah.
So that's kind of part of it. The goal I had informed the type of exercise.
Okay, that's interesting. The goal that you had informed the type of exercise at the outset of your journey. You said 5 years ago when you saw that family picture. Did you think, okay, I want to go get shredded. I want to go get jacked. I want to bench as much as I can. Like what specific tangible goals did you have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, and a really critical question for people who, need to do something or they want to do something. I mean, to really define what your goals were. Mine, I remember doing a vision board. My wife's really big on vision boards, and the vision board I had at the time, the image is going to sound weird.
Is you shirtless?
No, what definitely was not me shirtless. The vision I had was Daniel Craig as in his first in Casino Royale. There's a scene where he's got like short like swimsuit. He's coming out of the ocean, and he's super like fit. You can tell, and he's got like his pecs look good, shoulders look good, arms look good, but he's not like Hugh Jackman, right? He's not like The Rock, right? Like it's obvious that he's got a body type that's similar to mine. And I saw him like, oh my gosh, like he looks he's in 40s or in his 40s or whatever he was at the time, and like that was my vision of fitness. So strong, but like not shredded, right? Like you don't see like a six pack on him necessarily, but you see that he's got a flat stomach, and big shoulders. And I think that was kind of the big vision for me was that look maybe coming out of the ocean, right? Like with my shirt off. But the bigger thing was I wanted my shirts to fit better. Like that's a weird thing, but like I wanted my shirt to be tight around my chest and shoulders and then loose around my waist, right? Like it falls straight down.
Yeah, it doesn't come out a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't come out or like stretch on the sides or like I could wear like a slimmer shirt. Now back then they didn't make shirts as well fitting as they do today. Like you can, they make better cut shirts today. That
I've seen ads for guys for men's shirts that like, hey, like it's okay if you don't work out. Like we got a shirt that you're gonna look good in. And in my mind, I'm like, why don't you just try to get them to work out?
Or you could work out and wear a good fitting shirt. So that was kind of my goal. Is like I want to be, because I was never like fat, like I said, and I was always sort of skinny. So I wanted to put on muscle. I think that was big. And I knew that as I put on muscle that I'd be able to kind of change. And it wasn't until I really got with a friend of mine who started telling me about, and we can get into this, in a minute, but like how like your nutrition plays a role in your body composition, and like that I didn't realize at the time when I first started going back to the gym that I could really lose fat and put on muscle at the same time. It was really the goal was, okay, I just need to make like get back to the strength or like the how I felt when I was playing football, right? Like I want to put muscle on. And then as I started going back to the gym, I started like calibrating other parts of my life. And I think that's kind of what happens with a lot of people. It's like, or hopefully they take small steps, you know, it starts with running, and then it's like, okay, I want to lift weights, and then, okay, I'm feeling better. And I notice, you know, days you go to the gym, you tend to eat better.
Yeah.
Right. It's sort of like this
Snowballs.
Yeah, exactly. Snowballs. And so then you start looking at your nutrition, which turns out is like what I probably should have been leading with all along. But
At what point in this 5-year journey did you start looking at nutrition?
probably like it was within the first year.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of amazing. I mean, when you get back to going, you know, to lifting weights at least, I mean, it took a couple of months. I think there's an interesting progression when someone starts lifting weights, either for the first time or again after a long time off, is almost instantly, like within the first week or two, I've noticed this. I don't have a scientific backup for this, but this is what I've noticed in my own experience and, you know, talking to others, is you feel different. You start to feel stronger. You start to feel more confident in how you look. You start to you start to feel better about yourself. And that's like the first benefit of going back. Obviously, your metabolic health and like your heart rate, like things are happening that are good if you're exercising. But I think the first big win is you start to feel better. The next step, which is 2 or 3 weeks later, I think you start to feel better in your clothes, like the way your clothes fit.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, like my sleeves are a little smaller, or like, the pant, like the waist of these pants fits a little bit looser. Like you start to like notice these tiny, the notch on the belt is like what most people will go to. Like, oh my gosh, like that's how people realize they're losing weight. And I think it's kind of critical. You don't just like stare at the scale if your goal is to lose weight, right? Like, those are the wins you want to look for. Is you start to feel better about yourself. You start to feel better, the way that you fit into your clothes, and then I think you'll start to, after the next couple weeks, you'll start to notice you look different. Like you'll start to notice, okay, like I've got a little more muscle tone. Like I look a little bit bigger. I look a little bit thinner. Whatever your goal is, and that's the next step. And then I think after all of those steps, you start to notice, okay, my weight is changing.
Oh, okay.
So I think a lot of people, I think what they do is they go for a month, right, and they lose a 2 pounds, and they're like, oh my gosh, like
I killed myself for 2 pounds.
For 2 pounds. But if they're paying attention to those little wins, they feel better in their clothes, they start to look better, and then they start to see the results on a scale. I think that will help.
Even just like having, I think, more energy throughout the day. Like I found working out gives me more enthusiasm, and like you mentioned, confidence, and I think that has something to do with it. And I'm actually curious, like, do you feel like your fitness journey has had an impact on your mental health?
Definitely. I think when you have 4 or 5 kids, as you know, any chance you can get away for a minute is healthy.
Little reset.
Yeah, I think, but it's tricky because you don't want to cut into, at least me, I don't want to cut into like that time with my family.
Yeah.
That's most important.
Yeah.
So you have to find time, ideally, that's, at least minimizes the time away from those other important responsibilities.
That's why you get up really early.
I do.
What time are you up every day?
So 4:30.
4:30. Okay. What time do you go to bed?
When I go to bed and when I'm like no longer, no one wants to be around me anymore are two different questions. So it's like I try to get to bed around 9, probably put the kids to bed between the 8 and 9 hour, and then I go to bed around 9. I guess I don't know what that ends up being. That's like 6 or 7 hours of sleep, which is okay. I'm lucky that my wife's love language isn't necessarily quality time. I don't think it's more acts of service and some quality time.
By you going to bed, you're serving her by not being a grumpy Bryan.
Yeah, I think, but there's a lot you have to do when you're around. When the love language is acts of service, is a whole nother probably thing to talk about. But if I'm like diligent in taking care of her and the kids and like being present. And I think that that's more important. Like I know some guys that are like, I can't go to bed at 9 because my wife wants to be with me from 9 o'clock to 11, right? Like that's our time together.
Yeah.
And lucky for me, my wife is like, she goes to sleep too. So we both go to sleep early. So kind of went on a tangent there, but I think that I mean, I get up early. I think the mental health side of going to the like exercising has been critical. And I think back to your like mouse with the cat behind it and the reward out in front of it. I've found now I'm still the mouse in the maze, right? But like I love going and exercising. Like, it's now my me time.
Yeah.
Right? Like some guys golf, some guys like read, some guys ride their bikes, some guys ride motorcycles. But like I found that like my regular day in and day out like me time happens at the gym.
That's so interesting. So I have some like specific questions about the gym. Like, do you have a amount of weight you want to hit in different categories? Are you working towards that? Are you trying to maintain only? Like, are you using any sort of supplements to help you get to the next level? Because like I feel like a lot of people will get to a point where they plateau and they get stuck there, and then they go back to their bad habits, and then like, okay, I need to revamp, and I get stuck there, right? So like how are you building these layers?
Yeah. I think I mean, my snarky answer is like whenever I plateau, I just stop going for like 2 weeks, and then I can instead of plateauing, I just go backwards, and then I have another hill to climb. But,
yeah, okay. So you're always like, yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm always improving.
I'm always improving because
I'm also always like getting worse, but I'm also always improving.
No, I think for me, it's almost like fitness in general. I think a critical part is nutrition. I want to get to that, but like on the exercise side, I've found that a big part of my journey has been understanding and maturing in the gym has meant like I don't really care as much anymore as when I was younger about like maybe I just sound like an old man now, but like how much do you bench, right? Like that's a question that's like,
should I not ask that question because it's on the list?
You can ask that question, and I'd be happy to answer it. But it's like I don't care as much about that when I see someone in the gym, right? Like when I see a big dude in the gym putting up a ton of weight, like what I'm watching is his form and how many times he's doing this. I don't really even like whether it's 225 or 315 or whatever this guy's putting up. Like it's impressive, but like is he hurting himself?
Yeah.
And is he gonna hurt himself? Is this kid, that's obviously a kid, he's young, like just throwing up as much weight as he can? That was me. Like I had a double hernia surgery after playing football at Snow College. I was squatting way more weight than my little like body should have been, and I was doing it with bad form. But the culture there was like put on more weight, like do more weight. And it was all about being explosive. And, so there was different type
toughness too.
Yeah, and different type of, and like being like a little guy, like you want to be scrappy, like you want to hang there with the linebackers, right? Like, or at least the safeties. But us DBs were like, well,
seems dangerous.
Yeah, well, and they do their like fitness tests, right, for college. I literally had to do. I remember I thought so. They have like a lower standard, like NFL combine or like most colleges was like 225. How many reps can you do of 225? And that's how they max out. I think that's also a really good way to determine how much you bench. Not like 1 rep max. I think a lot of people get hurt or like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with 1 rep max, but like form and consistency and like how strong you are has an endurance piece to it. And I think that's what how many times can you do 225? But at junior college, when you play a very small position like corner, like if it's like the corners and the kickers, we got to do a 185. How many times you can do 185? Because they knew that like I can't get 225 off my chest, right? So so I did 185 6 times when I got back from my mission at Snow College, and that was like I thought I had like
man.
I could like that's for reps, right? Like I'm doing this for reps. So anyway, I and now in the gym, I think I'm in the last. So the first couple years of when I really started going back, I was so stoked to keep adding weight, and like I love that you start to gain that in the first like 2 weeks of really working out, you gain this muscle like mind connection where
Yeah.
it feels like you're getting stronger, but really what you're doing is like figuring out how to do this.
Yeah.
Right? Like just putting the weight in your hand is a big deal, and then moving it. That was the first couple of years I was just really excited to keep putting on weight. And then the last like couple years, last 2 years at least, I've been so much more focused on, I started following some interesting accounts and like these like physical therapists and doctors and like they like train Olympic lifters and things. And like what's far more important than like how much you can lift is how you move. And I think learning to move first correctly and then adding weight is the right way to think about weightlifting. Not
Talking about form,
form.
right?
Yeah. But full range of motion, not just like keeping the, in the right path or like not like having your form break down, but it's like, for instance, like squatting. Like I love to do squats now, and I'm squatting about the same amount of weight I did 5 years ago.
But your form's probably much better.
But I wasn't even going past like parallel, right? And or like not even all the way down to like a full squat according to going to parallel. But now I go like into a full like deep squat, like as far down as my legs will go. And so I've had to really work on ankle mobility and other things to get truly a full range of motion. But now my squat is like, I'm much more proud of it, right, than I even was back then. But I'm doing the same amount of weight that I was doing 5 years ago. But I'm moving, my form is better, and I have way more range of motion.
Does that solve different problems in your legs? Like you said, you had to work on your ankles. Does that like help your knees in the long term? Does that help your calves?
Yeah,
just better form.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously bad form can get you hurt, like bad form, and there's no like, there's a huge debate on like knees over toes and like how do you, and we can go down those rabbit holes. But I have opinions on those things, as far as form goes. But I think that yes, if you are moving right, like if you warm up correctly and you have like your joints warmed up, and like my ankle mobility was what was really holding me back. And the way my legs are, like I've like longer femur, so I can't go as deep as some people can as easily. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits. You start to work different muscles. Like when you get down past parallel, you're now really working your glutes and hams instead of just your quads in a squat. And it's one of those things that's like, there's a lot of benefits to it. And for instance, my wife was super impressed. She didn't realize just like a year ago or so, her sister is like what is she? She like worked at a gym. She was a physical trainer. She did corporate wellness is what she did. Oh, cool. So this was like her career. She went to school for it and stuff. And like they're having these, like, we were in a boating trip with the family and having these like fitness kind of competitions and obviously the typical like pull-ups and stuff. But one thing that like blew my wife's mind that I could do was a pistol squat.
What's a pistol squat?
So pistol squat is like a one-leg squat. You're on one leg and you go all the way down with your leg out in front of you. So you kind of make like the shape of a pistol with one leg out front.
I've seen that.
And like kind of grab your toe or whatever. And it's super hard to do if you haven't been working on a full squat, like full range of motion, like guys, because of where our weight is up in our shoulders, right? It's like a lot harder to do that. Like guys will go all the way down and be like, I can't get all the way back up on that leg. And it's partly, it's not just because you're not strong enough, but it's like being able to be flexible enough to go all the way down. Yeah. And then go all the way back up. So like the fact that I could do pistol squats, my wife's like, I didn't believe that. And I'm like, well, I haven't really been doing like heavy squats for a long time, but I've been working on my range of motion. So I was like, don't put a lot of weight on my back, but at least I can do a pistol squat.
So she was really impressed. Is
the whole point of that story was just how impressive I am to my wife.
I was going to say, is that when you had your fifth kid right there? It was like, wow, my husband can do a pistol squat. This is amazing.
Yeah, we might have made it but didn't have it. But,
yeah. I mean, I feel like one of my like motivations for working out is I always want to be attractive to my wife. Like that would be a good thing. I'd like to be 60 and she's like, yeah, you look great. Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about nutrition because I know that's a really huge part of it. And I know a lot of maybe the majority of your energy and focus has been there. So maybe let's start with what percentage do you think fitness has to do with your nutrition?
That's a great question. I think that to accurately answer that, I think it is important to like define fitness. I think that it's helpful. I mean, I guess I can answer for myself. Like my fitness, essentially to change your body composition, or or to put it simply, like to lose body fat, not necessarily body weight. So my current goals, right, are like I don't want to lose a whole lot of weight.
Yeah.
Actually, in the last like month, my goal has been to lose some weight because I let my diet go for a while, and we'll talk about what that means in just a second. But like I wanted to lose some weight, and so I really dialed in the nutrition piece. And so, but my goal was to not lose muscle necessarily, but to lose body fat. And so, in order to do that, which I think is what most, and I'm speaking generally here, but I think most men don't want to like be super thin.
Yeah.
Like if you don't run marathons, right, or you're not
Yeah.
like a cyclist or something, which they're not super thin either. Their legs are jacked, right? Like most men want to just lose body fat. They want to stay big. They want to be strong. They want to be masculine. They want to be able to move a couch, right,
Yeah.
or a bed or whatever,
Always hold your kids.
right, and but not be fat,
Yeah.
right? So when I speak generally, and for the rest of the nutrition piece, like that's sort of the goal.
Okay.
The goal isn't necessarily to like shed pounds, but to lose body weight while still being, having some mass, lean mass, so muscle. And I would say in order to do that, at least 60% of your fitness focus should be on nutrition, 40% on exercising, how you exercise.
Okay.
So over half. I think, the saying abs are made in the kitchen, not in the gym. I think
That's good.
is more true.
I've heard you can't outrun your fork.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. You don't want to either because running sucks. So just eat less. I say that, but I run it like I ran today. But when I say run, I ran a mile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I got just enough to get warmed up and then to exercise. So yeah, fitness. A big piece, over half of it, 60%, I'd say at least, is focusing on nutrition.
Okay. All right. So what sub elements are a part of nutrition? Do you meal plan? Do you have you removed things from your diet altogether? Are there like specific restaurants that you love to eat at, or restaurants that you refuse to eat at? And how did you find that trial and error?
Yeah, I think for me, a big piece was like, I think we all have sort of like fitness mentors, or hopefully we do, people that we look up to, whether it's an account we follow or a person. Like I had a buddy of mine who was sort of figuring it out with me, but he was a few steps ahead, so he was like teaching me about things, and until, I mean, we were lifting weights together, so we were exercising together, and so we were talking about it every day, like
Yeah.
and one thing that was really interesting, he started to introduce me to, that has been sort of the staple in the last 4 years of my nutritional journey, if you will, is counting your macros, or some people call it flexible dieting, or if it fits your macros. There's a lot of different names for it, but that's
macro. What does that mean?
Macronutrient. So it's where you're the focus of your like your diet. It's not really a diet, hopefully. It's called flexible dieting for a reason. I can get it, and there's like entire books written on this stuff, right? And I'm not doing a very good service, but the macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And so when you focus on those three nutrients, that's called like counting your macros. So you have these goals you want to hit each day of how much protein, how much fat, how many grams of fat, how many grams of protein, and how many grams of carbohydrates you want to eat in a day. And then you combine that calculation with your overall calories, right? And so what's the most critical thing, I think, for anyone to not get fat or gain weight is you have to burn more calories than you eat.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's pretty, hopefully most people get that. Like it's just math. Like you have to burn more than you consume. And if you do that on a regular basis, like you're not in danger of losing weight. What I found, though, over those 7 years I didn't work out, while I wasn't necessarily gaining weight, what was happening to me was my body was changing.
Okay.
My weight was like I mentioned, my weight was staying about the same, but I was getting soft, and the weight was essentially going out of muscle. Like I was losing muscle and putting on fat at an equal rate. So while I wasn't necessarily like, I don't think I was out eating, right? I wasn't eating way more than I was burning. It was probably, on average, I was doing about the same probably. I was, maintenance. But my body composition was changing because what I was eating
Okay.
wasn't right.
So I want to stumble through this question ignorantly. In that 7-year window where you went downhill, um, what what percentage of macros, nutrients were there to, and I don't know even know what the other category would be, like bad food.
Yeah, yeah. But even those, like, those are still the macronutrients, right? Like, whether you're tracking them or not, like, most people, like, the majority of your diet's made up of those major things: protein, fat, and carbs, right? The problem is I was eating basically all carbs.
Oh, okay.
Very few,
it
a
was
lot of
imbalanced.
fat, a lot of carbs, right? And the protein was way out of whack, like,
Okay.
not enough protein.
And
so,
is that what transitions like muscle to fat if you don't have enough protein in your diet? Is that what I'm understanding?
yeah, yeah, and that's super, like a food, a nutritionist or food scientist would laugh at, like, the fact that you think you can change your body composition or whatever, like, because you technically are losing body fat and putting on muscle, right? But, like, to like the idiot like me, I think, like, okay, I'm turning fat into muscle by the way I'm eating and how I'm working out. But really, there's multiple. It's a complex process happening.
There's some technical process that I'm sure we aren't fully articulating. So
That's right. But generally, and I've seen it work in my life and lives of both my brother, my friend, the people who some good friends that I have, that by focusing on your macronutrients, by getting those goals correct first, and then focusing on hitting those goals every day, you start to control the type of calories that you're eating. And and you think of it kind of like this budget, right? Like, you have, so typically I'll eat probably, my goal is typically to be within a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit on the day. 1,000 calorie deficit is kind of a lot.
okay.
But like a 500 calorie deficit, meaning I'm burning 3,000 and I eat 2,500.
Is that including like you working out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's active and in, like, resting energy. So that's like overall. I mean, there's a certain amount of calories you burn just being alive, right? And then on top of that, any exercise that you have, you can add that up. So that's why I really like. So I think critical for your nutrition is the first to know and have an average or a baseline of what you burn.
Okay.
And then to set a goal for the amount of food you eat that's slightly below that.
Okay. Talk to me about how you're calculating these values, right? So you say, track your macros and track on average how many calories you burn. Like, you have an Apple Watch? Is that a tool? Like, what tools do you use to keep track of all that?
Yeah. So the Apple Watch I use to track the burn. So what I burn in a day. And I have an app I use called MyFitnessPal. It's a pretty common app to use that tracks what I eat. So you literally, you put in the meal, and what it does is break down how many proteins, fat, carbs, and then it has the micronutrients too. All that information's in there. You plug it into the app, and at the end of the day, you can go back and you can actually see throughout the day, like, am I tracking to hit my goal of protein today? Am I tracking to hit my goal, stay under my goal of carbs? And that's the biggest piece of this, like, flexible dieting, is if you hit, like, ultimately where I found a ton of freedom was, like, I don't think my body really cares. I mean, it does. It doesn't really care if I'm getting a ton of carbs from, a cupcake, or getting a ton of carbs from wheat bread. It's kind of like, I mean, there's other micronutrients that are important there, but when it comes to carbs, like, my body is just, like, loading carbs in, right? And it falls in that category. And so the problem is a ton of people will eat a bunch of, like, wheat bread, or, like, eat a ton of carbs, and then, like, oh, I can't have cake. That's bad for you. But it's like, well, you should probably be really watching, all the macronutrients that you're putting in. And so what I focus on doing is setting my calorie goal. That's like golden rule. You can't eat more calories than you burn. If you have a really heavy workout day, like, or you go on a long run or hike or something, like, definitely eat more. Like, you're gonna be more hungry. That's one of the things that happens. But you should set that goal to be just below what you're burning. I like 500 calories. But if I'm within 500 to 1,000 calories, I know that I'm be burning fat that day. And then the other crucial piece of that is what you eat, in those calories. So you're in a calorie deficit, a caloric deficit, and then what you eat, the building blocks of that diet are the right things. If you're lifting weights, then you'll be building muscle. So typically for me, so to cut to the point and not be too long-winded, like, a bodybuilder will typically try to eat around 1 gram of body weight, 1 gram of protein per body weight. So
A day?
a day, yeah.
Oh, wow. And these guys are big. So
they're
that's
huge.
200-ish
Yeah.
grams, 300 grams.
Well, yeah, for them, it's
Yeah.
tons, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's like, okay, 170,
Yeah.
175 or whatever it is. But like my protein goal every day is like 175 grams of protein. And then the rest is sort of filled up by percentages. And that's like 30% of your calories come from protein, 30% come from carbs, 35 from carbs, 35 from protein, and 30 from fat. And that's your percentages.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I could tell you, let me look at it really quick.
While you look at that, like one question or one comment that I like. So this term flexible dieting, I've never heard. I think a lot of people find dieting to be really restrictive, and I think with enough restriction, people over time, they like pull a spring and then they snap back, right? But if you have flexible dieting and you allow people freedom and liberty to be creative and still like the things they like, then you're really just injecting some awareness.
That's right.
Into what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's the big win of flexible dieting or counting or tracking your macros is you have a knowledge of what you're eating. And I think that's where most diets are successful, right? It's like, okay, I'm actually aware, I'm counting calories, right? And that's kind of got like a bad connotation, but if you're actually aware of what you're putting in your body, you start to change what you're putting in your body. So just like one of our coworkers recently said, I guess I could say his name, but maybe I won't. He literally was just writing down what he was eating to like hold himself accountable, because we have this beautiful, we work for a great company that has this break room that's full of really good things, and if you're not careful, you can just pound candy, you can pound cheese, right? Like anything that's in there.
That hurt me. The cheese comment hurt me because I love cheese.
That's why I brought it up.
I don't even know how many. There's a lot of macronutrients, I'm assuming, in cheese. I eat them a lot.
There's some protein, a lot of fat in there. But just writing down what you eat in a day, I think that it would be fun to do this experiment, but I would propose that somebody who just does that would start eating a lot better. Yeah. Because they're paying attention. Yeah. Not just like, one thing after another. And the act of holding yourself accountable to at least writing it down. So for me, like that was my deal with myself when I first started tracking macronutrients, was like, I can eat whatever I want. Obviously, I'm a big boy. I can make my own decisions. The rule I made with myself was you just have to put it in the app. You just have to know at the end of the day.
That's cool.
So like if I was way over on fat and carbs, or like I like pounded a ton of pizza, like, okay, like I'll have another piece of pizza, but the where you can't compromise with yourself is like, don't hide it.
That's a good rule.
Yeah. And that's what started me like, okay, I can do what I want, but I'm not going to hide it. And I want to be able to see it. And that way starts to kind of self-regulate, right? Like you see it and like, I don't want to do that again. Like I don't feel good. And like, holy crap, like I wasn't even close to my goals. Yeah. So what I think is important is, at least for me with these macronutrients, and this is a whole podcast probably in itself we could get into, but hitting your protein goal, getting at least the amount of protein that you want in a day. So hitting, so that the muscle that I tear down in the morning when I weight lift and stuff is getting, fed, that I'm able to build muscle back up. I want to go over my protein if I can, get at least to the protein or over, and then go under on carbs. And then the fat is always like this, like somewhere in between. Okay. Usually the more protein I eat, the more fat I eat, just because I like beef more than chicken, and so fat comes along with it. But like an ideal day for me is a 500 calorie deficit where I go a little bit over on my protein goal and a little bit under on my carb goal. And if you do that long enough, what you end up finding out is when you're paying attention to these macronutrients, you fill your calorie budget up with good stuff. Like instead of having a piece of toast, like you have a protein shake. And so like, it's okay, I got to hit this protein goal. And you find day in and day out, you're even coming close to your body weight and protein. Like you have to be so deliberate in what you eat. Like your meals have to be, that's why you go to a restaurant and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to order, the base is going to be spinach instead of rice, right? Like, okay, because that's a ton of carbs I can cut out of one meal.
That's interesting.
And the chicken on top is still protein, but like you can cut out carbs in places that you typically wouldn't. Get a lettuce wrap at Chick-fil-A with with the spicy chicken instead of the bread, and like it changes the way that the macronutrients are. So
you have these lists of restaurants where I go there, I get something healthy, like, and then when you go to a new place, are you kind of like, oh, I don't really know, like, is that a trap for you?
I wouldn't say a trap. I'd say there's some, but yes, I mean you have to be. I think what that does is cause a little bit of friction to wanting to change your diet, and it actually puts you in a better, if you're tracking and you know that, okay, I've got to go like make a whole meal in this app and like find the thing and put the recipe together.
Yeah.
And it's like what you end up doing is eating more
Of the
of
same,
the same things.
you know, it works.
Right. And so, you don't get this like, I mean, foodies would not probably love this, right? But like you start to eat the same things. Cause I mean, in my app, like my recents, it's always like, I almost have the same thing for breakfast every day. Right.
What do you eat for breakfast?
Well, like protein shake, eggs, some cheese, yogurt if I can. And then, occasionally I'll have like a piece of toast with peanut butter on it or something.
Yeah.
But it depends on how I'm feeling that day, or how many, like if it's leg day and I know I'm going to be burning a ton of calories, I'll put some carbs in my body right before I work out, a granola bar or something like that, and know that I'll just be, like a high intensity workout, I'll be burning those carbs right off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the combination for me for most men, I think to lose body fat percentage, what I would tell anyone is lift weights.
Yeah.
I think that being strong is important for men.
Yeah.
And that will help you feel better about being a man if you can lift weights and you feel good. Like if you're out working in the yard and you're like, I can pick up that rock.
Yeah.
Like there's something so cool about like I've trained for this. Like
this is my purpose.
This is it. Yeah. I mean, like this is like you're a man. Like be strong, and I think lifting weights helps that. I'm not saying it's the only thing that you should be doing, but it's an important thing. And then focusing on getting enough protein and hitting the right levels and setting those goals is the most critical piece of the macro tracking. And that's a whole science in and of itself. There's calculators that help you do it based on your goal. Do you want to put on lean mass? Do you want to lose weight? Like your those macros will change. If you're super obese and you just want to lose weight, your macros are going to look very different. Your goal of protein, carbs, and fat are going to look different than a bodybuilder who wants to put on muscle and put on weight. So setting those goals is critical. But then I just find, I mean, the biggest thing for me with nutrition is holding myself accountable. Yeah. You get to the point where it's like you start to really know almost everything you're eating. I could almost tell you for the last week kind of how much protein I had when I went over, but still putting it in the system, in the app is helpful because you start to, and this is what has happened even in this last year. Like I started the end of last year, I was super, super on it, had this like trip, right? And I was like, hey, I gotta look better. So I get really into like the fitness and the nutrition piece. Workouts about stay the same. It's the nutrition that really starts changing.
Oh, okay.
I think that's interesting.
That's good to have those ebbs and flows, right? Something to work towards.
Yeah. Setting for me, like having a trip or some sort of goal where it's like, okay, I got to look good for this.
Oh, you're always traveling.
Some motivation. Yeah, exactly. I wish. But then like you start to fall off, like wintertime, and you like stop tracking and you just start eating what you want. You just feel like, I'm hungry. I just want to eat. I don't want to pay attention. And your diet just kind of goes off the rails. And I find over a course of a month or 2 months, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm like big. But what I'll also notice,
in a bad way, big.
I feel big.
Not like I'm big.
Yeah. No, I'm like, oh man, like like my waist feels swollen, or like you see yourself with your shirt off and you're like, oof, dang it. But what and it's kind of this. Maybe this is an answer to the plateau question in the gym. Is the nutrition side really impacts what I'm able to do in the gym. When I find that I'm just like eating tons of food and I know I'm eating a ton of calories and they're probably not the best calories, I actually I'm stronger in the gym. Like I'll get big, like bulking, right? There's bulking and shredding and like bodybuilders talk about all this stuff. But I'll find that like, man, I can lift more weight. When I really dial in my nutrition, you have to watch because your energy will start to kind of go down. You have less carbs. You're less motivated maybe in the gym. And I'll find that my strength wanes a little bit when I'm
You're that
losing
dialed
body
in.
fat.
You're that dialed in that based on what you've eaten, what output you could have in the gym.
I mean, it takes a week or two, but yeah, you can.
That's
I
crazy.
can definitely feel energy difference, and I can feel, and I mean, literally, how much weight, how many reps I can do of a certain weight will go down if I'm eating like a lot less calories in a day than I typically am. So yeah, your body, if you pay attention, whether you're running, weightlifting, whatever you're, if you're doing endurance training, whatever you're doing, if you're consistent enough in both exercising and nutrition, when you make small changes, and you make that change for like a week, your body will give you feedback. Like like I will find at the end of a day, even now, like I will know when I haven't had enough carbs, because I'll be walking around the kitchen going, "Where's the freaking granola bar?" Like I'm gonna eat a piece of Grandma Sycamore's white bread right now because I can't. Like I'm starving.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and like I realize I'll look at my app and be like, I like didn't eat.
Interesting.
I didn't eat enough carbs today. Or at the end of the day when I feel like, man, I'm lethargic and tired, and like, oh yeah, it's because I had pizza for lunch and like I ate way too much.
Yeah.
So you start to pay attention and get feedback from your body.
So there's another one point.
Is this a long form podcast? Because I'm really liking this.
I think we should do multiple episodes. So
Talk too much.
One interesting thing that I heard from Andrew Huberman, if you want to strictly for the sake of productivity at work, if you want to be productive at work, eat a high protein lunch. Eat a high protein breakfast, a high protein lunch, and then have a higher carb dinner to help you fall asleep. And that there's some like input output. And I know that myself when I have like, and I love my big, massive Chipotle burritos.
Yes, you do.
Sometimes I come back.
Nobody takes down a Chipotle burrito.
No one.
As well as you do.
You know what's weird though is when I have a big burrito, I basically don't eat dinner.
That's like 1,500 calories.
Yeah. And maybe part of this comes from my mission.
Not to mention the amount of cheese you put on that thing.
Well, I put cheese and I put queso.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Those
the
are
dip
those
and
are
the cheese.
For the listeners, that's the same word in two different languages.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, bilingual. But so in Argentina, where I serve my mission, their culture is like they have a very small breakfast, they have an unbelievably massive lunch, and they basically don't eat dinner. And I've like,
do you feel like you picked up on that?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah. Because like people fed us, and they fed us these massive lunches. Everyone takes a 2-hour nap though, so that's not the best strategy. But anyway,
after their massive lunch.
Yeah, the siesta, they literally close.
So that's a real thing.
They
actually like take naps in the middle of the day.
Yeah, they close everything for 2 hours.
That's a great idea. What a good culture.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, but I won't get into it.
Well, almost every day I think I could use a nap. I'd probably be more productive for the rest of the afternoon if I had a little nap.
They also go like they hang out late into the night. Like that's kind of their thing too. So it's just different timing. Okay, so I want to finish with the future. So take me into, you have this Daniel Craig vision. I think fitness is more of a journey than it is a goal. While goals help you, like at what point do you stop working out? Like at what point are you where you want to be? Would you transition into different types of exercises? Like I know yoga has a lot of benefits long term. Stretching or biking, like hiking, like what does the future look like when you're 70 years old?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like maybe I'm just feeling old or nostalgic at this point, because I feel like I'm entering into in the last couple of years. I feel like I've really entered into the tier of fitness that you're talking about, which is like that there's no like, I'm not like training for a bodybuilding show. I'm not like trying to get married, right? I'm not like finding my mate, right? Like there's like these points in life, like when I during college, football,
trying to get on a team,
right? Exactly. Like there's not like this like thing right in front of me that I'm going for. I mean, like I just mentioned, there's a trip, but there's a bit these small like little goals. But for me, yeah, it's there is no, ideally for me, there is no end to like weightlifting. Like there's no stopping of working out. I think I'm starting to transition or mature enough in the gym where I care more about functionality of my lifts and functionality or like sustainability than I do about like just how much weight can I move?
Mm.
And so I think how cool would it be to be like 70 years old and able to get into a full squat? It doesn't
Yeah.
even matter how much
Yeah.
weight's on your back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
imagine if you could put a bar on your back at 75, 80 years old and still be able to move well enough.
Yeah.
That's like that would be a goal, right? That's like so staying I think you really hit the nail on the head, and it's one of the goals I've had. One of the promises I made to my wife when we were dating and then engaged and going to get married was like, I promise that I will always take care of myself, right? Like that I want you to always be attracted to me.
Yeah.
And that's a cool goal to have.
Yeah. Like you have a spouse that you're proud of. Like, wow, like that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
It's a great gift.
And I think that is big to do that. I think more often than not, a lot of us guys like work out though. In addition to that, like for each other,
Sure.
like it's impressive when you see a guy that's like in shape.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And like I think that's a big part of it. So I think the future holds like a lot of, and I think that's part of the nutrition piece that I just mentioned is a sustainable nutrition like a sustainable diet. I hate to call it diet because that sounds temporary, or like dramatic, but a sustainable like healthy diet. And then in addition to that, like being able to move and like be healthy, like I don't see an end to that. And I think the challenges that will come with age are almost enough to like, it's not going to get boring, and it's definitely not like, it's almost like you never have this thing totally figured out. Like I'm still learning, and I think as you continue to learn and as I get older and my body continues to change, and it's going to be harder and harder to lift weights and eat right and like do these things, and like those, instead of like thinking of plateauing, like those things will bring new challenges. And I think that'll be kind of a journey for the rest of my life to figure out how I can stay in shape, stay attractive at whatever age I'm at to my spouse, and then ultimately, hopefully, add years onto your life. And then the big benefit through all of this is that there is no end goal, but the like day in and day out, you feel more confident. And I think my mental health is like you mentioned. I think it is wrapped up in my physical health. When I let myself go, when I don't go to the gym in the morning, I don't eat well that day. I don't eat as well that day. And that's a mental thing, right? There's nothing real. Maybe there's a little bit of physical stuff happening there where it's like, okay, I didn't burn a ton of calories or whatever. But you'd think that days where you exercise hard, you'd eat more.
Yeah.
But typically I find I eat better days that I exercise. And I think that's all mental. So there's these huge wins mentally and emotionally for me to have my me time in the gym, to exercise. And then one thing I found super beneficial that I want to continue to like hone and fine tune is this idea of keeping promises to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Integrity to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So both with nutrition and working out, like if I say this is the last thing of this that I'm going to eat, like if I think that in my head and tell myself that, like I just found this last couple months. So this is like a new, like a discovery for me. It's like, don't make yourself a liar.
Yeah.
Like either don't tell yourself that's the last one.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you tell yourself that's the last one, don't make yourself a liar.
Yeah.
And that has changed how I've, like recently, because I felt like I was kind of putting on too much water weight and like I was feeling a little lethargic. I was eating too much crap because anyway, I have all sorts of justifications for why that happened. But like I cut like candy out. I love candy.
Like forever?
No.
Or just you doing a month type?
Yeah, just sort of like kind of like a cleanse.
Yeah.
And like I have a buddy who's been cutting it out for like months, and he's like, there's power in like tallying each of the days, like day 2 of no candy. And like for me, I am good at all or nothing approaches. Like that's helpful sometimes, but except for when it's like nothing, right? It's like I think there's a lot of benefit in allowing yourself some freedom to have something, as long as it's within moderation. And that's what helping track the macros and things. So I've kind of gone off a tangent here, but I think that throughout my life, I think one of the things I want to always be able to say is like, I'm not making myself a liar.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do, like if I say I'm gonna get up and go to the gym in the morning, like I'm gonna get up and go to the gym in the morning. And like you said, like the time I found to do that doesn't cut into family time is 5 a.m. Like that's when I get to the gym, and either, I get back and I'm still there when the kids wake up, because I'm done with my stuff, or I get into work and so I can get home earlier and spend more time with them.
Yeah.
But to say you want to do something and then not do it is kind of important to me. And so whether we're nutrition or fitness or whatever, the goals that I have are sort of be, keep your promise to your wife, keep your promise to yourself, and hopefully, the results of that end up being you're just more happy. You're a more happy person. You like what you see in the mirror. Your spouse likes what they see in the mirror, and you're proud of what you're doing.
I love that full picture. That gave me chills. That gave me chills. The full picture. The reason you do this is for your family, for your spouse, to take care of other people, to make sure that you have integrity, that you have physical strength and mental strength, and then they all fall underneath that category of the different approaches. So I think that's awesome.
Thanks, Hunter. This is fun.
Yeah, man. Well, last question: how much can you bench? Stop recording, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not enough. More.
That's more. Always more.
I benched at my strongest. I was repping 225 like 6 to 8 times.
Okay.
At a body weight of like, and this was like 2 years ago before my form. I've changed my form. It's a little bit better. Like yesterday, I benched 225 twice, but I was happy with it. I didn't hurt myself.
It's good.
I got up to that, and then I did. That was my like top set, and then I worked back down with other weights. But so it's not a lot, but for my body weight, I'm like at 171 right now. I'm happy with it, and I feel good, but I wanna keep getting stronger. So
Okay, we'll leave it there.
How much? Wait.
I actually don't know.
You don't know how much you bench?
I haven't done like strength bench because I haven't worked out with people in a long time, so I've never asked anyone
That's
to
true
spot
too.
me.
I don't have a spot.
So
none of the times I've
you
counted
could do more with a spot, right?
That's
Like true. So I don't know. Like in all seriousness, I gotta figure it out.
Let's figure that out.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
All right.